Hello, this is Joel Williams again, content editor for Global Martial Arts University. We have amazing instructors at Global Martial Arts University leading all of our programs, but we also have amazing students as well. And so we like to highlight those students. And today I am meeting with Nicholas Fox, who's a purple belt in the Shotokan program. And we're going to get to know him a little bit today. Nicholas, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and to talk with you.
Yeah. So let's just jump right in and tell us about yourself. Who are you? Where do you live? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, I live in the northeast of the US. I live in Philadelphia, and our family is a little unique because I work as a consultant at a accounting firm, and my wife runs a summer camp up in Maine. So half of the year we spend in Pennsylvania, and the other half we spend in Maine. And actually, behind me, this is the office of the camp. We're recording this in the late spring, so it's a little bit before the summer camp has begun. But it's really been a it's been quite an adventure doing a move up and down. Our family is about to be a family of four. I have one 3-year-old daughter, and we're expecting our next any week now. She's due at the end of June. And I come from I'd say a martial arts speed dating background. I've studied a lot of traditional martial arts and some more combative martial arts all throughout my adult life, and I'm pushing 40 right now. So I haven't gotten as far as I have in any of those programs as I have with GMAU. I'm at fourth Q, which is 3 ranks away from first degree black belt. And I'm really enjoying being a part of the program. Even my 3-year-old asks me whenever I put on white pants if I'm going to be doing my karate do today, and I tell her, yes, of course I am, every day.
Awesome. Well, tell me how you came to find GMAU. So what did you stumble across it? Did someone tell you about it? How did you discover GMAU?
So I have always been intrigued by the idea of studying online. Ever since I started taking my first job, this was back in the 2000s, I kept telling my boss at the time, how come we can't just work at home? How come we can't just bring our laptops at home? And I mean, since then, and the last 15 years, and with the pandemic coming upon us, I mean, everything is being done virtually. So I'd always had in the back of my head that maybe I personally am such a independent learner. I will Wikipedia rabbit hole for hours if left to my own devices. So I always was interested in looking at schools online, and I had sort of earmarked GMAU for a while, since probably 2018 or 2019. I'd always had in the back of my head. But I had always been told through my experience that, martial arts should be trained in person. And so I went back and forth to a lot of different dojos, mostly Japanese style martial arts. I've taken some Korean style schools, especially one school nearby me. But ultimately, I discovered recently that after really thinking long and hard about what aesthetics I like in my martial arts and the type of body frame and strengths I have, I really identified Shotokan as like the style that I wanted to train and study. And there is a headquarters of an organization nearby me where we live during the winter. But as I went to look into starting to train there, the pandemic hit and they closed. So it brought me around to think about GMAU, and I really want to have that ultimate goal of being able to train at the advanced level, at like a black belt level, at that dojo. And so it made total sense to start looking into GMAU and build up my confidence and my skill set in this particular style so that I could cross train in person there when sanctions are lifted and when we have time. I basically went back onto the site. I had I had a demo account from 2018 that was still there, and I went back on, went through all the white belt classes, and the rest is history. Here I am.
Yeah. Well, I really like the connection you made between, well, obviously the pandemic, and sometimes these kinds of things create what seems like a bad thing can create an opportunity for you, a unique discovery that can be something really positive. So sounds like you were really able to capitalize on that. But I also really like the way that you have connected the idea of online learning as well as training in person. And so I know you've done a lot of training in person, as you and I discussed before we got started with the interview today. And you've been in a number of different types of martial arts and different schools. You've experienced different types of instructors, maybe large schools, small schools, that sort of thing. But I would like to hear about your experience with Global Martial Arts University in the Shotokan program.
Sure. And one of the things that I can definitely share is that feeling I had when I opened up the first lesson, and I got a copy of the syllabus after I had registered. I looked through the syllabus, and I immediately recognized that yes, all of these techniques are exactly what I would expect, a physical dojo training in traditional Shotokan to teach. Actually, I believe I actually took it and compared it with the ISKF syllabus, and we actually, up until maybe like the first Q level, the last brown belt level, I think we match exactly in terms of what kata and what moves are expected. So, and then when I watched the instruction for how to do the very basic white belt stances and maneuvers, I found that I was able to, from the videos, get enough level of detail and comfort that I could start to correct my habits from other styles and mold them into the Shotokan style very easily. Shihan John is just, he's super on point with the way that he disseminates it. He has such a patient and methodical way of teaching it. Like I feel, coming from previous martial arts experience, I think you learn how to learn in the beginning, and I could imagine that for somebody coming in with zero experience, it's a very good way if you follow the 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step Kihon drills. That's the same way that I had learned to absorb those moves at the beginning. And so it gave me a lot of confidence that this is the real stuff here. This is very much the kind of experience I was hoping I would get signing in, and it matches what I would expect from a physical dojo, just save for the location.
Wow, that's quite a compliment, I would say. So related to what you were just talking about, if there will be a number of people who come across this video, maybe people who are discovering Global Martial Arts University for the first time, maybe someone like you were about a year ago who has their eye on GMAU. Like you said, you earmarked it, right? And even people who have just started the Shotokan program or any other program in GMAU, what would you say to those folks? Maybe the ones who are on the fence about trying it, or the ones who are just getting started. What advice or tips or anything in general would you say to those folks?
Well, I would say there are 2 things that really stick out in my mind. And the first is that martial arts can be a solo activity. And, as we practice it for the most part virtually, it can be meditative in that way. But, it doesn't exist without having a community. And one of the things that's been great about GMAU is, yes, there is, of course, obviously the community of people who also practice, but you have the ability to interact with your instructors and to message with them directly and be able to send them videos of stuff you're working on and get feedback. But the first month or so when I joined, there's both a discussion group within the GMAU app, but we also have a Facebook group, and we might also have other groups on social media, but I mainly stick to Facebook personally. And, we get into conversations with folks and share and encourage each other. And it turns out there are a couple of Shotokan practitioners who live close enough by that, we talk about when the pandemic is over, actually getting in person and cross training. So, having that is a huge plus, and I don't think that it would be nearly the program it is without such a strong community of enthusiastic folks to train with who want to see each other succeed. I think the other thing I'd bring up is, if you're still on the fence and looking at GMAU, you might be doing a lot of internet research yourself. And I know for me, it tends to be that when I internet research something, I'm checklisting a lot of pros and cons about things, and I'm getting a feel for what people say on communities. And I think that the most important thing that I can share about that is to know what it is that you want to get out of your martial arts training. For me, at the time I first looked at the GMAU, I felt that I needed to have a bit more of the experience of training within my physical community. So it made sense to seek that out at the time. But my priorities have changed over time. I feel that for me, I know the specific style that I want to study, and I know that, you can choose between having, the martial arts side of your learning experience, or the fighting side, the learning how to spar and to do the sport. And then there's also the aspect of self-defense and, protecting a community or a group of people. Every martial arts style and every sort of method of learning gives you different combinations out of that bucket. And for me, I had to know what that balance was before I could make a decision. And I think it will help you all if you are thinking about doing a training here or anywhere. Think about what you want to get out of it. If you really want to learn how to fight and, to attack people or defend yourself from people one-on-one, you may find that, a style that's more suited to that, or like an MMA style, is going to be better for you. If you're the kind of person who's really into, Korean culture or Japanese culture, you may find like Taekwondo or Shotokan are going to be more up your alley. But everything is a balance. No one style and no one method can provide it all. So, I find that the best martial artists are always kind of picking and choosing. I think there was a Bruce Lee saying, wasn't there, Joel? Like, you seek the things that are useful in every martial art and discard the rest.
Yeah, that was a central philosophy in his Jeet Kune Do. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, well, that's great advice. So just kind of winding things down here, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think would be important to share, or do you have any other thoughts as we wrap this up?
I would say, well, other than making sure that you, we talked. I think we talked a lot about the key things here, and making sure that. I felt that having a goal and knowing what I want out of my martial arts helped me to decide. I think that this is a great school for those who have experience too, because the fact that you can take it at your own pace means that you're not sitting there waiting, 3 months for the sensei to tell you that you're allowed to demonstrate your skills. If you're devoting a lot of time to study and you feel ready, you're encouraged to give it a shot and go for it. And, I've personally made a lot of progress a lot faster than I had planned, because, I got over my fear of asking for advice and help, and, we all support each other, I think, in this field. And so as a martial arts with previous experience, that it's been good to know that those skills carry over. And likewise, for those who are in the program, I find no matter what level you come in at, the skills that you learn in GMAU, whether you take that rank with you somewhere else, or whether you just learn on your own for a few months, those are also transferable skills outside. That, just learning how to be more aware of your body, can help no matter where you choose to take your training next. And I think, again, you know, a lot of martial artists these days are picking and choosing, and this is a great way to add to your arsenal of sources of information to help you become a better martial artist. So
yeah, one thing that struck me while you were talking, that I think, well, maybe this matters and maybe it doesn't to those who are watching, but it's sort of a point that you would not understand or realize unless you were in a GMAU program, and that is, I have had so many GMAU students talk about the level of detail of feedback that their instructor gives them, and it's individualized just to them based on these progress checks and based on the actual rank tests, as you mentioned. And I myself, I'm in 2 of the programs. And I can tell you that, you know, for one rank level, I had to resubmit 3 more times, as, you know, there were a handful of things that I needed to fix. I worked on those. And then, you know, there may have been 1 or 2 other things that needed some tweaking along the way. And I would have to, you know, even submit 1 or 2 techniques that I was redoing based on the feedback that I was getting from my instructor. Either my footwork wasn't quite right, my stance wasn't quite right, didn't have the right timing or what have you. Yeah. And the point of all that is just to say that it's not like you have access to libraries of classes, you learn those and you mimic those as best you can, and you send in a video and somebody sends you a belt or gives you a belt rank. You have to earn everything that you get. And I think that's a really important point. So is there something personal that you can add in that regard?
Oh, yeah. I think that's been absolutely true. And one of the things that I was most impressed about was submitting for the first exam, just seeing the very specific items that needed to be improved really cut right to the core of the areas that I wanted to improve in my own practice. So, you know, recognizing like for like was a very comforting feeling. And I think the other great thing is in the Shotokan program, I think there are 4 or 5 different black belts right now who are at the instructor level. And while every one of them has a different style, they all provide, you know, very similarly detailed feedback and always focus on the right things. I feel like I'm never told anything that's superfluous. I had a grading video recently come back for this purple belt exam, and you know, the items to review were 2 specific things that I know about my body mechanics, my knee alignment and keeping my knees steady during transitions and stances. And 2 things were very specific corrections to kata that like I knew I didn't even realize I had missed it, and now I can go back and work those even better. And like just the level of like the expectation is very high. And I think that again makes me feel a lot more confident in my practice, knowing that folks are looking out for you. And I'm hoping that that's also the same in the other different schools that we train in. I only do the Shotokan program here.
Yeah, that's I've had a very similar experience myself. So it's you know, it's confirming to have an instructor tell you something that you know is maybe a weakness of yours or something that you need to work on. You know, on one hand, it's I guess for some people it could be a downer, you know, that, well, this is just a problem that I have, and they could look at it that way. But to know that your instructor sees that and your instructor is telling you what you need to do to fix that problem or to improve yourself, that says a lot about how closely your instructors are actually looking at what you're doing, and that they can see the things that you already know are your strengths or are your weaknesses, and that comes out. And I've heard a number of students, GMAU students, say things like that.
Yeah, and that's not very different than how it would be in a physical dojo too. Um, Really, the only difference is that when you submit for feedback in GMAU, other than for the progress tests and exams, you know that's self-directed. So the more you seek out advice, the more you'll get. I know that in a physical dojo, you'll sometimes get the immediate tactile feedback that says, okay, everybody's in a line doing this drill, this Kihon drill, and the instructor might come around as it's happening and correct. But you know, having when you see the video classes, you'll find, especially at the higher levels, you're reminded before each set of Kihon about things that you want to focus on in that particular round. I was just taking a class where we were doing the kata ladder, so we were doing the first 6 kata, through the level I'm training at right now. And at the beginning of each one, the sensei was saying, focus on, in this particular instance, have your lower body and upper body, land at the same time when you're doing your technique. So, we can be mindful ourselves without having to just rely on somebody actively molding us. We can mold ourselves. And I think that creates good mental practice, because if we have it gives us the ability to self-correct. And I actually find that can be a downfall of a physical dojo, is you don't always get the ability to self-correct because you rely too much on somebody else telling you. You can be a lot more. I think it improves your practice as a martial artist to have your own awareness and develop your own mechanisms for listening to your body. So in a way, I feel like that's a hidden benefit. I hadn't really thought of that before, just mentioning it now. But
Yeah. Well, that's what happens in these conversations. Those are things just tend to come to light, and that's one of the really useful things about these interviews is this is a conversation between us.
Yeah.
And whoever's watching it is like they're listening in on that conversation. Well, Nicholas, I want to thank you for your time today. I know you're busy. I know you all have a lot going on with your transition and your working. So I appreciate you taking time out of your workday. And I just want to wish you the best in your journey with GMAU, and good luck on your next upcoming test. Sounds like you just had a test, so you're going to be learning some new material right now.
Oh yeah, I'll probably hit that one in the next 2 or 3 months. But thank you for having me on board. I love being able to talk about this stuff, and looking forward to seeing what GMAU has in store down the line.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and I hope we can stay connected. So now that you and I are connected through GMAU through this interview process, I hope we can continue our email correspondence and that sort of thing. And so again, that's one of the nice things. We're part of a community, so that's one of the nice things to highlight. Yeah. So for those watching, I hope this was informative for you. And please go to the Global Martial Arts University homepage, where if there's one of the programs that you're interested in, you can set up a free beginner's account. It doesn't cost you anything. And in these programs, basically you have full access to all of the white belt or white chevron or level 1 material in any of these programs. And so you can really try it out. You've got a 30-day money back guarantee on that too. So I would encourage anyone who is on the fence or who's thinking about it to just give it a try, because you've got nothing to lose. So I hope you all out there in the world are doing well in this time as we're recovering from a pandemic. And if you're looking for an opportunity, as Nicholas did, to continue your training or to start something new in a unique situation like this, Global Martial Arts has something for you.